Hi everyone, and welcome to the CSTEM Photography Challenge again. My name is Alicia Garcia. Decided to add a little picture of myself there. It is March 1st, and we are on our, let's see here, cycle 5 of our challenge. So complete design prototyping. That sounds a little alarming, that we have to have something completed. But let's remember here, it's just that you will complete the prototypes based on what you've been researching this whole time. Every little thought that you've ever had, now we're actually trying to wrap it up and build that little prototype. Now, look at this chart. There are not a lot of yellow columns left, orange columns left on this chart. We're on 5 of 7 cycles. That's not a lot of time. So since that's not a lot of time, I would say that you have to be very, very good with time management. That way you can make sure that you're not scrambling towards the very end of this entire project you spent so much time working on. So let's take a look at a reminder of your photo challenge. So the whole time you've been researching based off of your school's level and that word. So elementary school with clean water access, middle school this whole time you've been researching for clean water conservation, and high school you've been researching with clean water efficiency. Your prototype needs to be based off your research. Again, we have things going hand in hand. Paper goes hand in hand with image. And some of you that are my more creative students will spend more time on the photo, and other students will spend more time on the paper because you are gifted with words and you can make beautiful, beautiful magic with words. You have to find a balance between the two. So let's take a look again at the frame. When I was working with my students last time we met, I remember everybody said, hey, I'm a little confused about the frame. And we had all sorts of questions. And I know that since this is a competition, we have some teachers participating and watching this right now, but we also have some students. So for both students and teachers, I think we're going to go over this again because we need to provide some clarity. So let's talk about the process of building the frame. This paragraph we're going to look at right here that we're going to read is directly from the CSTEM curriculum. So this is not my paragraph. This is the challenge paragraph. If you get lost, you need to come back to this video and look at this paragraph. So it says each school's photo challenge entry must be enclosed in a frame designed and created by the students. Notice it says you cannot store buy this. You must design and make it yourself out of recycled or reused materials. Last time we talked about upcycling, a different type of recycling, where we're using repurposed materials, and that your frame size must be 11 by 14 inches. Some people get confused mathematically when we talk about measurements. Quotations mean inches. The photo itself cannot exceed 11 by 14 inches and must be accompanied by that one-page typed short story. In the grand scheme of things, one-page short story is nothing compared to other things you will have to write. My high school students, I'm sure you've had to write a paper that's longer than 1 page long. So let's make this the best single-page paper you've ever written to accompany, as the last line says, your photographic masterpiece. Because you will not be right next to your photograph, it is extremely important that you do not forget the weight and importance of this paper. Because if you have a beautiful photograph and the paper just doesn't sell it, it's going to be imbalanced. So let's look at some examples of the frame. So I just made a quick little graphic for you guys because we had lots and lots of questions about the frame. So if I went to Target, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Walmart, I'm throwing out all sorts of names of stores because we're in Texas, so we have a variation of stores. Now, I say we as HCP. Now, all your schools, though, not all of you are in the Houston area. So think about any hobby or craft store, Walmart or Target, something that's very local that you can go to. They have a frame section, and typically their frames have this They're either wood and they're brown or they're black. So let's look at this frame and say that's my wooden brown frame. And the inside is white with some example photo of somebody smiling. It's the photo that says, this is what this frame does. This is what you could put inside this frame. Well, the example we're going to use here is we have a brown frame and the white square you see in the center is the glass of a traditional frame. We had lots of questions about how can I fill up the frame? If some of you decide to have a traditional, very rectangular frame that fits in 11 by 14, your photo can fill up the entire space of this frame. Notice that the entire brown and blue portion of this example is 11 by 14. The photo is actually a little smaller than that because the frame is 11 by 14. That's a little confusing. And teachers, if you're participating and watching this, I would say that this is something you need to stress to your students as far as dimension goes, because I think it's going to help them out immensely if we can have clarity and really make sure this is not where students get tripped up. We had really clever students say, do I have to fill the entire frame? Remember, you're using recycled material. The world is your oyster and you are free to use whatever techniques you'd like. You could have a photo as an example down here at the bottom right corner of your frame, and you could fill the rest of that area with reused materials. Nobody says that this has to be something very traditional that we see when we walk into somebody's home. This is completely your masterpiece and your idea that's going to bring home all the research you've been doing. So if it means keeping that little photo in the bottom corner, by all means do it. But know that there is no rule that says you can't. So we had a lot of people wondering if they could last time, and by all means do it. We're waiting for the next slide to pop up. Here we go. So how many drafts or test photos should I make? Because before we were talking about we're beginning your prototype. Now we're starting to complete the prototype. So some of you have already been making your prototype, you're winding up and figuring out what you're doing. I like to say, let's define prototype right now. Again, the prototype is the early sample, model, or release of a product built to test the concept or process. So you're making an early sample, a model, that's made to test all the research you've done. That's all it is. You have a thought process and you say, can I make this photograph ring true to what I've written down on my paper? And I have a lot of students that ask me this, not just within either a C-STEM challenge area, but at HCP, at universities I teach at, people forget that photographs are like writing papers. You don't just sit down and write the best paper in the world the first time you sit in front of your desk. It doesn't just flow out from your head and it's perfect. It takes a lot of time. There's multiple drafts, and that's how we all learned in school. You make your first rough draft, your second rough draft, then you have a final paper. It's very much so like that when you're making photos. And notice at the bottom it says you can have more than one prototype or draft of your photo. I encourage it. If you think that you got the perfect photo on the first try, chances are you should go back and reshoot that. That you need a lot more time going by to make sure you got this right. So again, that leads us to our next slide, which is take lots and lots of photos. It takes many, many photographs to get, let's call it the, in quotation marks, top 5 of the idea of what you've been researching. I'd rather you have taken so many photographs, you have a hard time choosing. Let's all hope for that problem. That's a great problem to have. I would hate for you to have the problem where you haven't taken enough photographs and now you're scrambling around to try and make something look good. I'd rather you be completely overwhelmed that you have too many good photographs to choose from. And again, you have to shoot a lot to get the best photo possible. So let's all have the good problem, too many good photographs. So this whole time I've been saying before, look online, use your smartphone. We're influenced pretty much by society and technology. That we're influenced by TV, your smartphone, your computer. All this time, I've been giving you website links to say Getty Images, Instructables, Pinterest, other sites that have lots of ideas in their communities that talk about the act of creating. Well, now, let's say we just turn off the TV, turn off the computer. I know it's going to be really hard, my high school and intermediate students. Put the cell phone away. But that's the perfect time to just pick up your camera and shoot. It also, it's really beneficial for you because you need to have no distractions. No distractions while shooting. And I'd say that right now, a lot of people try and multitask too much. Multitasking is a great thing, but when we're doing a project, I want you fully focused on your project because it's a competition. I want the most focused, most geared up student ready to do this project. So even though multitasking is a good thing, let's give an example that there's an alarming trend of people on their cell phones while they watch TV. I find myself doing it. Instead, I should be just doing one thing or the other. I shouldn't really be trying to do them both because then I miss out on something on TV or I am really not using my phone to its best capabilities. So the same thing goes if you have your TV on and you're playing with your camera, or you have your phone out and you're outside and you're missing your shots. So let's put all that away and just focus on the camera. It seems like a really simple thing to do, but it's really hard to rid ourselves of the distractions in the world. So that's going to be difficult, and we'll all see how hard it is for us. But I thought I'd like to show you guys today some examples of some great photographers. You're probably like, what the heck am I looking at? This is crazy. Well, what you're looking at is a master photograph. This is somebody that the photographs are in museums all around the world. They worked really hard to get a perfect photograph. And this was done in the darkroom. So, of course, none of this is something that you would ever experience today, but I'd like to show you this because it shows all the hard work and effort that goes into a photograph. So the picture on the right is the finished product, like what you would give in the final part of the challenge, the photo you turn in. The picture on the left is the original, and all of those scribbles and notes all on top of the photograph are edits and saying, hey, I need to go back and reshoot this, we need to repose, we need to add or take away. That's a lot of edits. That's a lot of notes. That's what it means to be dedicated to your project and to your individual photo that you're working with. That you worked so hard that in your mind, you had a photo like what's on the left so that you could turn in that beautiful masterpiece like the photo on the right over here. I'll give you another example, a really classic face. This is Audrey Hepburn. So it's a beautiful photograph on the right, and it looks effortless. But let's look at the left side. There's all sorts of notes of how it needs to be fixed, what could be done. And so that's a lot of time. That's many hours of dedication to get that photo on the right. A lot of people think that professional photographers don't have to try hard. They're just really good at making it look easy. But in fact, it's not easy at all. And so if you feel like you're having a difficult time, know that if it was easy, everybody would do it. This is the difficult task that you've been given. This is really a challenge. And don't ever think that it's one and done. Think about these 3 photographs. I'm going to show you another one. This one is not a before and after, it's just the before. This is Muhammad Ali, famous boxer, for sure. Some of you know that name. But look at all those notes. They're scribbled everywhere. I want you to think about that. Think about your photo when you look at it, or maybe you print it off. And you take a marker or a pen or a pencil, depending on what you printed it off on. And you say, oh, I could have gone outside when it was a little brighter because my photo is kind of dark. I could have turned on a lamp inside, and that would have made it look a little better. Or maybe it's the photo's blurry. You just need to retake the photograph. But all of those things should dictate, just like these 3 examples here, and we'll go back and look at Audrey Hepburn and the man standing in the street of Paris, that all of these have in common is a great deal of dedication to one individual photograph. And that's what I want you guys to do, especially when we're completing the prototype. Your prototype should be marked all up and have a really good sense of where we're going to go when you really start making the real thing. So let's also be the bearer of bad news again. For some reason, if you weren't able to tune in last time, students and teachers, because life is busy, but if you are tuning in for the first time out of these last 2 challenges, I'm going to tell you that Photoshop will not be used in this challenge. Sadly, we cannot use it, and I'll give you some reasons right now. So, being the bearer of bad news, I do have reasons for why. So 1, this is a challenge about photography, not post-processing. Photoshop is a program that post-processes photographs, so we really don't want to do that. Number 2, younger photographers tend to over-process their images and thus make them look distracting and not as successful. Again, these photographs are going to go in front of judges, and I want them to say, wow, that's a great photograph, and they're going to read your paper, and I want them to say, you took so much time, this looks great, rather than saying, oh, they photoshopped that. And then they don't even want to read your paper because all they're looking at is that you photoshopped something. And number 3, if a photo needs to be photoshopped, it should be taken again. See, again, when I said, turn off your TV, turn off your phone, turn off the computer, go outside or inside if you're shooting inside, but focus solely on that and shoot. Because if you have to Photoshop right from the beginning, chances are it should have been taken better. So I know that's a lot, that's a tall order to think about, but I'm sure we'll have questions about Photoshop and frames and all sorts of dimension questions or some issues you guys have been encountering. So please join me right now in the chat, and we will talk a lot more about all your questions that you have, especially that we're getting towards the end of our challenge. So I thank you for your time, and I will see you in just a little bit.